Hey everyone, hope you are having a smashing day, and I hope you Americans had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Today we're going to talk about the possibility of a remastered Dark Souls 1. So, let's get started. Earlier this month, Miyazaki-san sat down with Glitzel, I think that's how you pronounce that word anyway, and they discussed various stuff. I'll post the article down below, but what caught my attention was the reformed opinion he had on remastered versions of previous Souls titles. Earlier this year, when asked if a Demon's Souls or Dark Souls remaster would be a thing, he straight up dismissed the question. Now, this could have been because Dark Souls 3 was on the horizon and he wanted people's focus to be fixated on that, which from a marketing perspective is totally reasonable. Now, a few weeks back we discussed who owns what within the Dark Souls franchise, and we know Bandai Namco owns the Dark Souls trademark and From Software owns the intellectual property. For those who don't know, this basically means neither company can make or remaster a Dark Souls game without the other's consent. So, when Miyazaki sat down with Glitzel, this topic was brought up. A lot of people are interested in playing HD remakes of Demon's Souls and Dark Souls. Is this something you'd be willing to let an external team handle? Miyazaki then responded with, "I've mentioned this before, but Sony Interactive Entertainment holds the rights to Demon's Souls and Bandai Namco Entertainment holds the rights to Dark Souls, so they call the shots on remasters and remakes. So I'm not in a position to comment specifically on it. As for the question of having an external team create a remaster or remake, I'm not opposed to this idea by any means. If such a scenario arose, I know both Sony and Bandai Namco are mindful of the integrity of the respective titles, and I'm confident that each would put together a highly skilled team that would be an appropriate fit." So what I took from this is I think he'd be on board if a separate external team handled the remaster, which is great news for us. I feel Miyazaki doesn't want to sacrifice a part of his studio in which he is now president of, when the company is making steps to go in new directions, which again is perfectly reasonable if you ask me, and really quite smart of him. Not only do we get a remastered gem, but the future IPs that are being created by From Software have their fullest attention. We know firsthand what the studio can do when their best is focused on one project. We can bash on Dark Souls 3 and 2 all we want because it went under some pretty drastic changes concerning directors, but look at Bloodborne. In my eyes, it's the best game they've ever made, and obviously this is highly subjective of course, but to me Bloodborne, besides the PvP, is such a fantastic experience, and it had their best working on it. Combine the attention to detail A-Team portrays with the innovation and ideas B-Team brings, and we'll be in for such a treat. But like I said, that's all very personal and feel free to disagree. So moving back onto the remaster, basically what this means is Bandai Namco will commission a remaster because they obviously will. In a past video we talked about how successful the Dark Souls franchise is for Bandai Namco, with Dark Souls 3 bolstering their financial growth for the first time in 4 years. Like Miyazaki said, they know the integrity of the titles and know a Dark Souls remastered will be beneficial business-wise, so more incentive for them to greenlight the project. But when can we expect this remaster? Well, with Dark Souls 3 winning Game of the Year at the Golden Joystick Awards, we could expect to see a Game of the Year edition bundle, with the base game and the 2 DLCs included. They've done this for every single Souls game, including Bloodborne, Dark Souls 1 Prepare to Die edition, Dark Souls 2 Scholar of the First Sin, and Bloodborne's Game of the Year edition. Now, for vanilla Dark Souls 2, the final DLC, The Crown of the Ivory King, was released October the 1st. Then, Scholar of the First Sin, which included a newer version of the base game and all the DLCs included, came out 6 months later on April 1st. I think this is a good indication as to when we'll get a Dark Souls 3 bundle. Now, looking back at the past From Software releases, the second DLC for Dark Souls I feel is going to be released around March or April of 2017. with the bundle being released 6 months later in October, acting as the Game of the Year edition. But most importantly, not only do I think they'll release a bundle because, well, they've done it for every single game, like I said, they'll release a Dark Souls collection, if you'll call it that. And that'll include Dark Souls 3 Game of the Year, Dark Souls 2 Scholar of the First Sin, and the new Dark Souls 1 Remastered. We've seen this recently with the Bioshock franchise, and despite people's complaints, it renewed people's interest for the games again, so I feel it did its job fairly well. So what I'm saying is Dark Souls 1 Remastered, coming October 2017. Calling it now, and if I'm wrong, then shit. This video could have been me just literally saying that line, but you know, I like to find evidence for my claims. What changes would you like to see in the remastered version of Dark Souls 1? And if the Dark Souls collection was a thing, do you think you'd buy it? I feel it's kind of hard justifying buying a game you already own just for that one game that's a remastered version. So let's hope they don't go down the Call of Duty route. But I feel as though they won't, especially with Bandai Namco at the helm of this project, as they seem recently to be doing a fairly good job at listening to their customers. Take that with a pinch of salt. I've been banned and then unbanned on Dark Souls 3 about 4 times now, and I still haven't a clue what's going on. But with that said, that's going to be today's video, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it. I am really looking forward to Dark Souls 1 Remastered. If it's a thing, I think all the evidence points to it's going to be a thing. It's just more so, when is it going to be a thing? But I'm excited nonetheless. So take care, guys. Be good to one another, and thank you so much for watching.